And some people think that the word cunt is so offensive that they always, and in many ways childishly, substitute it by calling it the C word.
Well, I'm definitely not one of those people, you fucking cunt. Welcome to episode 4 of The Descent of Man-osphere. A series exposing the scumbags of the Man-osphere and how they're trying to reverse human evolution and drag us back into the fucking sea. And today, for the first time in this series, we're dealing with a fellow Brit. Oh, it makes me so proud of my nation to think that we can still produce world-class dickheads. Although this particular manospheric colostomy bag hasn't actually lived in the country for about fucking 20 years. These fucking immigrants going over there, taking their jobs, taking their houses, taking their women, and more on that last point later. I'm talking, of course, about Thunderf00t. Real name, Philip E. Mason, and I don't think I'm duck dropping him there at this point. I think, really, it's pretty well known that that's what his fucking name is at this point. Anyway, yes, we're dealing with old Thunderneck himself. I mean, just look at the size of that fucking neck. It absolutely dwarfs the size of his fucking head. It's ridiculous. It's like a fucking tree stump with a hairy pea on top of it. Now, Thunderf00t is one of the big fish in the YouTube atheism scene, and he's been around since pretty much the beginning. In terms of what he does for a living, it's, what is it now? I can't remember, because it's not as if he likes to go on and on about it constantly.
And I can tell you that firsthand, as someone who spent the best part of the last 10 years doing hard science research at Cornell University, a fairly respectable university. I spend my life furthering the knowledge of mankind, a pursuit with a track record of success, that of physical evidence and reasoned logic. We normally call the model forming process science. And I'm going to have to travel all the way from there to the Hawaiian island of Hilo, where I'm going to go on top of the volcano Mauna Kea to hopefully near the Keck Observatory. Seems like a natural place for scientists to accumulate to me.
Seems like a natural place for scientists to accumulate to me.
Now, I'm going to be really busy while I'm at this reactor for about 2 weeks. Colleagues like Richard Dawkins. Colleagues like Richard Dawkins. Colleagues like Richard Dawkins.
Colleagues like Richard Dawkins.
You can fuck off.
First of all, you should know that I've worked on alkali metals in a research sense for at least a decade. I'm currently at a nuclear reactor in France where I've been running some experiments. By any definition, a scholar of the pattern finder variety. You know, a scientist.
Oh, that's right, he's a long-distance lorry driver. Only joking, he's a fucking scientist, but he really doesn't like to go on about it that much. And instead of describing himself as an atheist, he prefers to describe himself as a PERList, which stands for Physical Evidence and Reasoned Logic, which is all well and good and everything, but it's some pretentious fucking bullshit. Seriously, when you say things like this, Phil...
Would normally go by the tag, if at all, of PERList, which is Physical Evidence and Reasoned Logic.
People don't think to themselves, oh look, there goes a sceptical, rational, free-thinking atheist. People think to themselves...
Do forgive me, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation, and I do feel it would be remiss of me not to smash you in the face with a cricket bat.
Now in this video I'm going to try and avoid going over all the old dramas he's been involved in, because quite frankly there are only so many hours in the fucking day. I could take forever going into fucking all the different dramas he's been involved in over the years. Because quite frankly, is there any person who's ever been on the internet that this fucker hasn't been in a drama with? Philip Mason is the kind of guy that could start a fucking argument in an empty room.
Fuck you, Thunderf00t. You're an asshole.
Now there are many things that Thunderf00t really hates, but none more than...
professional victims. Professional victimhood. To these professional victims, Professional victim Kool-Aid. Professional victim looking to get on TV. His passive-aggressive victim routine to play the victim. Selling victimhood to feminism. Yes, we're back to the professional victimhood.
It's just a good thing that Thunderfoot never plays the victim himself, whilst fleecing his army of gullible rubes out of over $3,000 a fucking video. Oh wait, that's totally what he fucking does.
So someone has set up a Twitter account in my name. It is not big, it's not clever, it's not funny.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Yeah, Coughlin's explicit goal of photoshopping someone to make them look like a terrorist, or photoshopping them to look like Bin Laden and dead, it's not to politically make a point. It's not for art. It's to get on someone's nerves. To personally harass someone is the stated goal. Dr. Craig Videos is a pretty nasty piece of work, repeatedly claiming in this comment section of a video of DPR Jones's that I was fired from Cornell for making threats of genocide against Muslims and gratuitously dropping my real name. On a personal level, the people who wrote to my employer a great big long diatribe email about how I was a racist against Islam. I'm serious. And that how I promoted Nazi ideology and so forth. I mean, it's quite an incredible email to read. Here's a fun idea. Let's take someone we hate on YouTube and Photoshop them into various derogatory positions. I know, I've got an even better idea. Let's Photoshop them into pornographic images of masturbation. Pornographic images of masturbation. Pornographic images of masturbation.
Pornographic images of masturbation.
I direct this message to YouTube. If this doesn't warrant action, does anything? I personally think that YouTube needs to decisively show that this sort of unashamedly publicly orchestrated, pathological group harassment is not acceptable. I mean, it looks like Anita Sarkeesian is personally responsible for getting me suspended on Twitter. Many of you will say, well, where's the problem? They're a company, they can do whatever the hell they want. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. No. Influence without accountability is the root of corruption.
Influence without accountability is the root of corruption.
To put it mildly, Thundercunt is not adverse to throwing himself a pity party anytime he gets even the slightest fucking criticism. Seriously, this dude has the fucking weirdest thinness of skin to thickness of neck ratio of any human in modern times. Now, it sort of goes without saying that Thunderfoot is an anti-feminist, because of course it's something of a prerequisite in order to be one of the fuckers on this series that you have to be that. He has series called Why Feminism is Poisoning Atheism and Feminism versus Facts, and even went so far as to make a video called Why Feminism Poisons Everything. Because there's nothing like a piece of clickbait misogynist bullshit in order to keep the fucking mob of assholes filling up the Patreon coffers, is there, Phil? And that's ultimately why he does it. And I'm not saying that he doesn't actually believe in that cause or whatever, or that he's not actually an anti-feminist, but what he's doing here is basically pandering to the fucking mob for money, like the worst kind of intellectual prostitute. And this can be seen perfectly in the now fucking seemingly 600 million fucking videos he's done about Anita Sarkeesian. Because ultimately Phil doesn't actually really give a fuck about video games, but what he's worked out is that he can make a lot of money out of the swinish multitude known as Gamergate.
Again and again people say, okay, we get it, Anita Sarkeesian's a con artist. We get it, move on. And sure, I understand the sentiment, and I'm moving on.
Oh yes, Phil, you've totally moved on. That's why you've only made 12 Anita Sarkeesian videos in the 9 months since you said that. I wonder why you've carried on making videos about her. That's intriguing. Now, many of Phil's pathetic little fanboys, who I'm sure have already been frantically thumbing this video down for their dear leader, will point to his sciencey videos and his series called Why Do People Laugh at Creationists in order to try and defend him. And it's actually because of those videos that I used to be a fan of his. But then I grew up and realised actually his science videos were pretty lame for the most part. All they were kind of vague, wishy-washy, flowery talk about the majesty of the cosmos and the fucking huge step forward that the Enlightenment brought and science for the win and all the rest of it, which is all fine and good, but ultimately just made him sound like an extremely poor man's Carl Sagan. And his ponage of creationists is essentially shooting fish in a barrel. It's just him plucking at the lowest of low-hanging fruit. And it's that kind of criticism that really gets Phil butthurt, by which I mean any criticism whatsoever. But when anyone criticises him, rather than reacting like an adult and actually having a discussion or a debate or actually responding to the points, he will use one of his many ego protection strategies. And they come in many forms. There's obviously the straw man, the ad hominem, the accusing of your detractors of having some sort of mental illness, even though you've based that just on some shit you read on Wikipedia. Or there's the old, let's not divide the house of atheism. And his absolute speciality, taking anything you say out of fucking context, which is basically his reaction to everything. There's virtually never a time where he quotes some fucker where it isn't out of context. If he has ever responded to you, he has almost certainly used that particular power move on you. And by the way, if anything I've said so far in this video, or anything I'm going to say in this video, offends you, and this especially goes out to Thunderfoot's army of sycophantic fanboy dickheads, then please do accept these entirely sarcastic apologies.
I am deeply, deeply sorry. Please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
Now, no video about Thunderfoot will be complete without talking about the Muslims, because to put it mildly, Phil's had something of an overly aggressive past with the followers of Islam. Now, before we get into this, I'd just like to point out that I am in fact an atheist, that I'm not here to try and defend the faith of Islam, and I certainly hold absolutely no flame for the Prophet Muhammad, praise be upon him. Oh, fuck! Now, the Thundertwat was one of the more vocal people here on YouTube in support of the Draw Muhammad Day thing. Now, that was in no way an act of grandstanding on behalf of a demagogue, and was actually a really valuable defence of freedom of speech. Oh no, wait, no, that's the opposite of fucking true, isn't it?
When we first had the Danish cartoons of Muhammad, many in the mainstream media were intimidated into silence.
Decision of many media outlets, including CNN, to pixelate the images of Muhammad.
Now, I know, as well as you do, that you have not done that in order to avoid sparing the hurt feelings of my fellow guest. You've done it because you're afraid of retaliation and of intimidation.
Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words offer the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth.
Now, I'd like to ask him and anyone else who agrees with him is watching, is that the relationship they want to have with the free press? Because if we have to use this stupid word offensive, those of us who believe in the Enlightenment and the Constitution and the First Amendment are very much offended by this mad, babyish conduct. But we don't go out and kidnap the nearest Muslim we can find and take him hostage.
Including people like South Park. They succumbed to religiously motivated threats of violence by Muslims.
Yeah, everyone else in the media is a fucking pussy except for you, eh, Phil? Oh, the Thunderchrist has come to save us! See, now you showing a group of angry Muslims and acting as if they're representative of Islam as a fucking whole is like me showing videos of you and then saying, look, all atheists are complete cunts, aren't they? Also, lumping all Muslims together and then asking if Islam has any place in the West. Don't you think that's a bit, bigoted, really?
We want the international community to put on trial that American pastor who has burned our holy Quran.
Well, what are your options? To ignore the giant ideology squid? Well, newsflash, ignoring an ideology that will kill a dozen or so people for a book being burned will do nothing to diminish the existence of that ideology.
Just like how you ignored the ideology of the neo-Nazi scum that you attracted to your fucking cause with this nonsense. That didn't make them go away, did it? Because as you said, they were just useful idiots. Yes, how fucking despicable of you. And not done there, he decided to get involved in the whole burning a Quran fucking thing. And obviously he needed to show that his dick was bigger than Pastor Terry Jones, so instead of burning one, he decided to burn 40,000!
And it was this foundational concept, embodied as free speech, that led Western civilization, which had languished in the doldrums of religious canon for the best part of 1,000 years, to where we are now. Without this explosion of knowledge, the technology would not exist for you to watch this video. Without this explosion of knowledge, it would have been the life's work of a scribe to produce the 40 or so tons of hard copies of the Quran that I digitally created with a few clicks of my mouse. Without this explosion of knowledge, I wouldn't be able to mix the few household chemicals that people eat on a daily basis, to make the 1,000-degree fireball at the end of this video. Without this explosion of knowledge, I wouldn't even be here to make this video. I would have died in agonizing pain of peritonitis about 5 years ago.
Damn you, modern medicine!
Now, for those without a sense of humour, that's what we like to call a joke. But fanboys, don't forget to keep thumbing the video down.
There are no ideas beyond question.
Except for your ideas, Phil?
This hard drive contains about 40,000 Arabic versions of the Quran, and behold, at the stroke of my finger, well, actually several strokes, it seems that hard drives are now actually fairly robust to this sort of willful abuse. I can destroy those Qurans. But wait, I have access to the knowledge of the fruits of free speech. I think I can do something a little more colourful, prettier.
Now, Phil has never been one to turn down $1 from a fucking neo-fascist idiot, so he decided to stir up the hornet's nest of such fucking cunts. So he decided to opine on the subject of South Park being censored because of their drawing of the Prophet Muhammad and all the rest of it, in a video entitled South Park versus Islam.
Theo Van Gogh. You know, the unarmed guy who was cycling to work before he was shot 8 times. Then stabbed, and then had his head cut off, simply because he made a film critical of Islam. Bravo on a prime example of why your religion has no place in the first world. You see, all that barbaric stuff in the Quran about cutting off arms, legs, tongues, heads, and so on, Sharia law you call it. You know, all that stuff that you actually enforce in the Middle East about stonings and whatnot. There's similar stuff in the Bible, you know, utterly destroy those who don't buy into the religion and stone disobedient children and whatever. However, ultimately, after 1,500 years of acting very much as you do now, it was convinced in the Enlightenment that that really wasn't the way forwards. Mankind moved forward, out of the age of religion, and into the broad sunlit uplands of the age of reason, and the first world, and it's never looked back.
Firstly, Phil, most Muslims don't act in that fucking way whatsoever. And secondly, in Islam, it's only the year 1436 as it currently stands. So, if they went through a similar enlightenment process as you've asked them to today, they would in fact have beaten the Christians to it by several hundred years. Now, isn't that an interesting fact that would add nuance and depth to the argument that you will never fucking hear in a Thunderfoot video?
But like every other religion, you can check your Iron Age baggage at the door, or else go back to the Dark Ages and live in that time warp called the Middle East, where the only glimmers of lights that permeate that dark, dingy human backwater is what spills over from your enlightened neighbours who have not shackled their minds to ignorance. Your alternative is to fight. the only way the nation that has lived in the Dark Ages for 800 years can, by terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, no first world non-Muslim citizen has ever committed an act of terrorism, have they? Oh no, wait, that's happened fucking loads of times, hasn't it? Yes, first world non-Muslim people committing acts of terrorism, horrific bombings, slaughterings, killings, assassinations, the fucking works. So maybe picking up on the fact that they're Muslims is to miss the fucking point slightly.
And yet, of course, the criticism of the moderate Muslims was conspicuous only by its absence, and that really does speak volumes of their attitude to these acts.
They were silent, were they, Phil? It's surprising how you lose the ability to Google shit when it fucking suits you, isn't it? Because with a 10-second Google search, you would have discovered fuck tons of moderate speaking out, you lying little prick.
But let's say that all your box cutters and shooting and stabbing unarmed filmmakers, you managed to actually threaten the enlightened world. And I mean threatened beyond crashing a few airliners. Your only achievement will have been to have awakened a sleeping giant.
Do you mean your erection?
However, the Enlightenment did not just raise the standard of living. It did more than deliver us clean water, the eradication of smallpox and the PlayStation. The rift between the prowess of the First World and the advanced warriors of Islam on the battlefield can be put in no lesser terms than the contrast between ants and gods.
Oh, for fuck's sake. If you can't work out why that is considered bigoted by people, then you are just too far gone for me to ever help you, aren't you, really? I mean, look, I know there's a context there. I know he's making a point about relative military strength and all the rest of it. But comparing some people to ants and some people to gods, and then not being able to work out how people have taken that as bigoted is just fucking ridiculous in the extreme.
This is the Prophet Muhammad depicted as a squirrel in slow motion. I did this. Your move. Do your worst. For even your worst will serve as nothing but a catalyst to strengthen the walls of the Age of Reason, to awaken the giant.
Are we back to talking about your cock again? Jesus Christ, man, you're obsessed.
You see, you cannot shoot words. You cannot behead an idea. And you cannot intimidate concepts, and if you try, the fulfillment of your worst threat will serve as nothing but an icon, written in the blood of the free.
So are you going to go and pop your tin helmet on and go over there into the front line and take on these fucking bearded, cave-dwelling, camel-fucking sand niggers? Is that what you're going to do, is it, Phil? No, of course you're fucking not, are you? Because just like all the rest of you Islamophobic, bigoted fuck-knuckles, you're prepared to fight and die to the last drop of other people's blood. Oh, just fuck off. You don't give a shit about Theo Van Gogh or any other victim of Islamic terrorism. None of you Islamophobic dickwads do. Pamela Geller, Robert Spencer, Geert Wilders, the lot of you. None of you really give a fuck. You're just there to try and profit, either financially or in terms of prestige and attention, from the misery, deaths and suffering of other fucking people. You should be thoroughly ashamed of yourself. I know you're not, but you fucking should be. But Phil still wasn't done there, because he decided to open his stupid fucking mouth about the wrongly named Ground Zero Mosque.
Ground Zero Mosque?
No.
Well, do they have the right? Sure, it's America.
Well, that's that conversation done then.
Likewise with the Ground Zero Mosque.
It's not a mosque, and it's not at Ground Zero. Just saying.
But maybe more pertinent in the current case, though, is the concept of reciprocation. Something that is as biologically hardwired into every human watching this video as is your need to breathe oxygen. The general concept is, you're a jerk if you do to me what you would not like done to you. So let's take a hypothetical reciprocation example. A bunch of religious fundamentalist extremist Christians fly a couple of civilian airliners into Mecca, destroying the Kaaba, the holiest site in the Islamic world, completely.
I'm sorry, Thunderfoot, but I wasn't aware that the Twin Towers were of any religious significance to anybody. Oh, sorry, I've interrupted you building your straw man. Please, continue.
And a few years later, a bunch of Christians turn up and want to build a giant Christian church and cultural centre within a proverbial stone throw of the crater.
The Park 51 Community Centre is 2 fucking blocks away from Ground Zero, okay? So either you can throw stones really fucking far, or you're full of shit. My money's on the latter.
You see, it's not just that Christians wouldn't have the right to build in Mecca. All non-Muslims are prohibited, strictly prohibited, from merely entering Mecca.
So fucking what exactly? Are you suggesting we should follow the fucking rules and moral standards of the fucking Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, one of the most despicable fucking totalitarian states on the fucking planet? Or maybe we should hold ourselves to a higher standard and act as an example, a beacon to the rest of the world.
Indeed, Saudi Arabia is maybe an archetypal example of what Islam has to offer.
Now this is just one of the many fucking many examples of where Thunderfoot will lump all Muslims together and then say, oh, look at Islam. Because he knows that Saudi Arabia is not an archetypal example of Islam. There are loads of different sects within Islam, to the point where the people who run Saudi Arabia are a different fucking sect to the people building or have now built, the Park 51 community centre. But he doesn't really give a fuck about any of that, because he's trying to preach to a mob of racist mental defectives, so it's probably best to avoid things like nuance.
Now, don't get me wrong, I am all for the productive enrichment of society through cultural mixing.
Be careful now, Phil. Some of the Islamophobic dickwads that you're trying to get Patreon donations from might go elsewhere. Now we've reached that point in the show where it's time for... Yes, it's the inevitable bit about rape. After all, we're dealing with someone from the Man-osphere, so they were obviously going to say something dumb and disgusting about rape, weren't they?
So there's this very popular video going around at the moment which quite rightly highlights this dismissive attitude, particularly in the Middle East and Asian regions. Get this very short end of the stick when it comes to violence against women.
Why work late and be independent? In fact, why work at all? That's what husbands are for. Fun fact, if he's your husband, it's not rape.
Women who wear skirts are the leading cause of rape.
Women who wear skirts are the leading cause of rape.
However, there is part of this video which is a very widely seen message online that from my seat is just so bloody stupid. And this is the sentiment that just because something is against the law, that you should under no circumstances take steps to reduce your risks in such an environment. Probably the simplest way of explaining this concept is through an analogy. Put your hands up if you have a lock on your front door.
Oh, right.
Why do you do that? Why do you put a lock on your front door when theft is against the law? Yeah, why teach me to put a lock on my door? Why not teach your children not to steal?
Yes, let's dehumanise women by comparing them to fucking houses.
I would further add that people have different sexual drives, and the idea that you will simply be able to educate people out of their sexuality is unlikely to be successful.
So let's not bother teaching people not to rape? Is that what you're saying here, Phil?
Sexual attitudes seem to be pretty deeply biologically ingrained, and I have significant doubts that you will effectively be able to educate people out of them.
But they're going to be in that situation. No, that's not true. If you train men not to grow up to become rapists, you prevent rape.
You think you can stop? You think you can tell a rapist to stop doing what he's doing?
Yes.
Really? And he's going to listen to an ad campaign
there are
to stop?
organizations that...
Yes, what a way to bolster your intellectual arsenal. You've called in Sean Hannity on your side. Are you fucking trolling now?
This is why we teach kids not to get into cars with strangers. Rather than holding up signs saying, don't teach my kids not to get into cars with strangers, educate your children not to abduct, sexually abuse and murder children.
Yes, do you hear that, full-grown women? You are just as naive and stupid as children.
For that, you've got to take a closer look at the crime of rape. Now, from what I've read on the subject of rape, it seems to fall on a spectrum going from the traditional depictions of violent rape, which seems to be much more a crime of violence and domination than it is of sexual gratification. And such assaults make up a relatively small amount, maybe only 10% of the total rapes. This bleeds into things like date rape, where there may actually be some elements of a normal relationship, and indeed, in many such cases, the victims know their attackers. Here, the desire for sexual gratification from the male plays a larger part than the physical domination part. Then you go through the transition between rape and just bad sex.
Shut the fuck up!
Fucking asshole.
Fuck yourself! Fuck yourself! Fuck yourself!
Oh, for fuck's sake, Phil. Ugh. That is truly despicable. You should be so ashamed of yourself. You really should. Because what you're doing there, you're not even doing rape apology anymore. You're essentially doing fucking rape advocacy. You're saying to men, oh, just go for it. Go and fuck whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Because you're not doing rape. It's just bad sex. It's just bad sex.
Then you go through the transition between rape and just bad sex. And like it or not, such a transition exists. I mean, for example, well, it was fully consensual to start with, but when we went at it, the sex was just awful. And at the end, I asked them to stop, but they finished anyway.
Yes, Phil, that is rape, okay? It doesn't matter that you got consent at the beginning. If at any point during sex someone asks you to fucking stop, you must do so forthwith, as soon as it's physically fucking possible. Otherwise, it becomes rape. That's what that fucking is, okay? Again, what you're doing here isn't even rape apology, it's rape advocacy.
But you are responsible for your actions, even if you choose to get drunk first. This is not slut shaming. This is not victim blaming.
Yeah, it is. It is really, isn't it, Phil? Come on.
By far the best weapon you have to fight against a stronger, more powerful adversary is psychology.
Nah, your greatest weapon in self-defense is probably a gun, or a knife, or a baseball bat or something. See, if I had to kill you, Phil, I'd prefer to have one of those weapons on me, because then I could just shoot you, or stab you, or beat you to death with a fucking baseball bat, you know. What the fuck am I talking about? Oh. It's strange, every time I watch a Thunderfoot video, I start having really violent daydreams. I wonder why that is.
I would normally go by the tag, if at all, of her list, which is physical evidence and reasoned logic.
But for those of you who feel more comfortable with a more civic analogy, burglars look for people who have left their windows unlocked.
Yes, ladies, don't leave your pussy unlocked.
In the same way that sexual predators look for the body language of the victim. This is not victim blaming. This is giving people advice on how to avoid becoming one.
Filippo, have you noticed how it's only racist dickwads who feel it necessary to have to go on about how they're not racists, and how that might fit into this whole slut blaming, victim blaming thing you're doing here?
Sadly, this advice will almost probably be entirely disregarded by almost everyone.
I wonder why.
Just bad sex. Your choice of clothes is a statement about yourself. And whilst most date rapes seem to be crimes of opportunity, there are still nonetheless actions that you control exclusively.
Tell me again how this isn't victim blaming, Thunderfoot?
Be clear, and above all, be honest with your body language. And this will probably reduce the chances of you ending up in situations where there have been miscommunications.
Seriously, Thundercunt, tell me how this isn't victim blaming.
Look, I'm an honest guy. that about 1 girl in 3 has had a traumatic sexual experience that has had a disproportionate effect on how they deal with subsequent relationships. And to be honest, I feel for their deep and long-term mental scars.
Does anyone seriously believe him when he says that? Really?
And just how much more beautiful they could be had they not been so damaged.
Yes, you're ugly if you've been raped, according to Thunderfoot. Basically, you're someone else's used cum rag. You're soiled. Fuck, you're such scum, aren't you, Mason?
Just bad sex. Just bad sex.
Just bad sex.
I would add one more thing. The people who have been badly scarred by such events are probably not the best people to give advice on such subjects, as they are more likely to disproportionately represent the danger.
And we should all definitely listen to Thunderfoot, because he's got it all fucking figured out. Am I right? So anyway, how to sum up Philip Mason, aka Thunderfoot? Well, basically he's worked out the simple formula that if you pander to bigots and the lowest common denominator in society, they will give you money for it. And he's amassed a huge army of fanboys. Hello there, by the way, keep thumbing the video down. It's doing a huge service for the cause of science and education. And he's basically forgotten the original purpose of what he was doing, which was to have a go at creationists, I suppose. And yeah, shooting fish in a barrel, I know, but it was still perfectly reasonable and worthwhile, and trying to introduce certain bits of science and education, all the rest of it, which he doesn't really do that often anymore. So all in all, Thunderfoot, aka Phil Mason, aka The Pearlist. Go fuck yourself.